Hello everyone, and welcome to the What's New in Cloud Migration session that is part of the Business Central launch event for 2023 Wave 1. I'm Joost, I'm the product owner for Cloud Migration Tooling, and today I'm joined by Nicola.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicola, and I'm one of the software developers that is working on the Cloud Migration Tooling.
All right, today we'll cover a lot of new features for cloud migration, starting with the new UI for cloud migration, for migrations coming from Business Central on-premise. Next, we'll move on with the opportunity of moving custom fields to extensions during the cloud migration. We'll have an update on the company limit per environment and what that means for cloud migration. Next, we'll talk about various performance improvements that make sure that you can migrate your data to the cloud even faster. We'll talk about new App Insight signals for cloud migration. And finally, we'll give some insights in our roadmap and plans for cloud migration over the next wave. Now, I'm handing over to Nicola to start with the new UI for Business Central Cloud Migration.
All right, thanks Joost. So let's get started with the content. And the first topic for today is the new UI that we have introduced for all of the cloud migrations that are for the Business Central product. So this UI that you're going to see is only for Business Central. The Dynamics GP cloud migrations and Dynamics SL cloud migrations are not going to be affected. So to show you the new UI, you can access it by running the wizard as you are doing it right now. So if we quickly complete this wizard here by providing connection strings, selecting companies, and then on the next page when we invoke finish and we say that yes, we want to move to the cloud migration management page, the thing that you can see here is that the new cloud migration UI is going to appear. And as you can see, it is looking quite differently compared to the previous UI. And the main change here is that we have changed how the UI is laid out. And right now you have an overall status here. So you can see what is the current state of the cloud migration. And currently we are creating the companies so we can move the date. You can also see how many tables were copied successfully. Right now it's at 0 because we didn't move anything. And you can see the company's status. So you can see how many on-prem companies are there. We did not replicate any of them, and we currently have selected 4 companies to replicate. So this part of the header is showing you the complete status of your cloud migration, while previously what was the main content is currently just a log or a history. So here you can see the historical steps that you did to the cloud migration. So this current UI is much better showing you the cloud migration because you have a single cloud migration that has its status and it has a list of steps that you did in the past so you can track what happened. Also, we applied your feedback and we got the BC idea that you should not need to select a specific record to run an action on, like run data upgrade. Right now you can just invoke the actions on top without the need to select the specific record. So that one was done for free. We are going to automatically check the status. So if we continue with this cloud migration, we are just going to do a small demo. Now the status is going to change to ready for replication. And if we start the data replication, the status is changing to replication in progress. So it means that now we are moving the data. In the background, the integration runtime is doing preparation tasks. It's connecting to the on-prem SQL database, and soon the tables remaining are going to appear. So the thing that you can see here is that we did the adaptive UI. So controls like tables remaining, tables failed, and any similar other things are going to appear only if they are needed. And then when the record hits 0, they're going to disappear. Thus, we do not clutter the UI. So we show only the information that is relevant. You can drill down on it. You can see which tables are going to be copied and what is their status. And now if we are refreshing the status, the thing that you will see in the second is that the tables successful have moved by 1 and tables remaining have shrunk by 1. And soon we are going to copy the second table, like here. And if I rewind it all the way to the end, you can see that we have copied all of the tables. The tables successful are 1034. The status is ready for replication because you can do another run if you want. And the history line is showing that you have completed 1 replication successfully. You can also see that you have successfully replicated 4 companies. There is a mismatch because previously it was 1,900 and now is 1,000. And the reason why is that 900 tables had no data in them. Thus, we do not report them as tables successful because nothing was copied. So this was all for a very short demo. How does the new UI look like? So for the next demo, the thing that I'm going to show to you is how you can use the new UI to prevent the mistakes, because this was the main reason why we have implemented the new UI. And to understand why, we are going to start with the old UI. So in this UI, I have completed the cloud migration. So I have moved 200 companies in batches of 10. So here you can see that we have really a lot of data. And as some of you know, the only way currently, unfortunately, to find the failed tables is if you click it one by one. And somewhere around here, oops, there it was. Just a second. So here we have a table failed. And as you can see, this is not really a nice way of detecting the errors. And this is why many people were overlooking the failed tables. Additional problem here is, even though we have a table failed, the question is, what is the current status of this table? Because the only way to fix the table that has failed the replication is to do another run. And then the second migration run is going to fix the failed table. However, in this current UI, that's unfortunately not possible. There are also two big mistakes that would happen if I would disable the cloud migration and go live at this tenant. However, they are not visible in this current UI. So to show how you can prevent the mistakes, we are going to start with the demo of the feature to switch to new UI. And the reason is we have rolled out this change relatively late in the process. And in case you have done any customizations to the existing UI, or if the new UI is not working for your cloud migration processes, you are able to switch for the time being between the new UI and the old UI. So if you want to switch between the new UI and the old UI, if you go to Actions, there is an action to enable and disable the new UI. And in this dialog that appears, we will just say that we want to use the new UI, and then we will be taken to the new UI. It's the same action if you want to switch back to the old UI. So here, when we have switched to the new UI, you can see that we have overall 5 failed tables that we need to fix, which was completely not visible in the previous UI. The second mistake you can also see in the line below, I did not replicate all companies. So I have missed 4 companies in the replication. And then if I would go live, there would be some data missing. Now, if you would like to see which tables have failed, you can easily drill down. And on the page that opens, you're going to be able to see which tables have failed the replication and in which company. So in this column here, you can see the company, you can see the table, you can see the error message, and you can also see if we have copied any data or not. So you can see if the table is containing the records or not. And the last replication status of this table is failed, which means you have a problem. If you scroll down the list, you can see the specific runs. And for example, here, you can see that now we will mark the replication was successful. However, some tables have failed, so it will be very visible in the status itself. And for this specific replication, you can see that you have this table that has failed. For this one, we have 4, and for the last one, it's 2. So if we invoke the 4, we will see which tables have failed for this one. And for the last one, these 2 are actually quite interesting, because the thing when you open this page here, you will see that the text is not red. It's a regular text. And the reason why we have introduced the regular text here is because the table is actually successful. And you can see it in the last replication status here. So it says successful. That means that you did a subsequent run, which has actually fixed the problem itself. To see that now this one was done at 3 or approximately 4 a.m. And if I open this one, I can see that I had a second run 4 hours later that has fixed the problem. You can, of course, navigate to this company, look at the data at the table just to make sure that it is correct. But you have a capability to navigate. Also, the second thing that you can do is that you have this section which says show all replications. So we will show you all of the replication for the selected company and selected table. So you can see the entire history that was done. Okay, so that was all for analyzing the failures. Then additional thing that you can analyze, which wasn't possible in the past, is the data moved. So right now we can click on the table successful, and we will show you all of the tables that were copied. And we will also show you the number of the replications on the right. So if you invoke this one, we will show you all of the replications that were done on this specific table. So in case you need to see this history, you can do that. Then the next nice feature on this UI is, if you go back, you can look at the status per company. And one of the interesting things that you can analyze, which we recommend, is per database tables. So if I select per database tables, now I can see what happened with per database tables. So on the top, I can see that the custom report layout and report layout selection were actually copied twice, and the tables were replaced both times. So it was a full copy. The tenant media was copied once, and it was delta synced. Thus, there is a difference, and it is expected to have a difference here, because we must not overwrite the tenant media table. And for the upgrade tags, unfortunately, because the table is marked as internal, we cannot provide you with the number of records in the table. So we will mark it as a warning, and then when you open the replications, you can see how many records are on-prem, how many are copied. Thus, you can test and see approximately if the change was correct or not. So unfortunately for internal tables or for obsolete removed tables, we are unable to give you the exact count of the records. Okay, so the next thing you can do on this UI is that you can check for the specific tables. So if I would like to see what happened with the changelog, because the data is not moved, if I simply filter and search for the changelog, and I set a filter here, and I close it, we are going to say to you in the dialog that the table is excluded because it was marked with replicate data false, which means it is not copied. We will also show you that the table does not exist or table contained no data, thus we did not show it as a successful table. The last thing that you can do here is that you can check on the replicated companies. So if I'm wondering which companies I forgot to replicate, I can invoke it like this. And here on this new column, which is called replicated, I can set a filter and say no. And now I'm going to see which 4 companies I'm missing. And you can select them from this dialog here and start a new migration run to move the data for these missing companies. And the last status here is that we have introduced the new action to complete the cloud migration. In the past, you would stop the cloud migration by disabling the cloud migration and going live. This was a little bit confusing to some of the partners. And also the problem was that we could not distinguish if you are stopping it because you're going live and it was successful, or you are stopping it because you want to do something on the instance or delete the tenant and start over. For this reason, we have introduced 3 states. One is complete the cloud migration, pause, and abandon. And I will show you right now the complete action. So if I invoke complete migration action, we are going to show you a message that you cannot do that because you have failed tables. So when you're ready to go live, we're going to do sanity checks and prevent you from doing mistakes if there is anything that should stop you from going live. So for the remaining of the demo, let's pretend that we have fixed the errors. And now, if I try to complete the cloud migration again, the error message that I'm going to get after some checks are done is that I cannot complete it because upgrade is not completed. So this was a 3rd mistake that I would make if I would decide to go live. I forgot to do the upgrade because this migration was from version 14. And now we are going to check if you have done all of the steps before you go live. So if we invoke a drill down here, we'll get 2 actions. And one is to pause the cloud migration, and the second one is to abandon it. Pausing should usually be done only if you want to temporarily disable it and continue it. And abandoning is if you want to delete the environment and start from scratch. And if you invoke this dialog, you'll get a very nice simple form just to enter the reason if you want, why you are pausing it or abandoning it. And then when you invoke the finish action here, we are going to stop the integration runtime, do the cleanup processes in the background, and you're going to get this kind of error, this kind of message in the log that cloud migration was paused and the reason that you provided manually. Now, the difference between the pausing and abandoning is not much. It is more for you to keep track of status, and it is also for us to be able to see in the telemetry what was done. And it's also a way to signal to us what is the state of this environment. Even if you regret abandoning the cloud migration or pausing it, it's possible to set it up again simply by running the wizard again, and you will be online and running. So both actions are recoverable. So that was all about the new UI, and we did two small additional features which are supposed to help you to have an easier go live and to help you that you do not need to open a support ticket and wait for us to unblock you. They are basically designed so you can unblock yourselves. And the first action is to unblock the tables. So in this case, like here, if you have a table failed, which many of you probably know, we block it from any writes. So it becomes not writable until you do another application. So in this case, you needed to open a support ticket and wait for us so we can unblock it. Thus, in some cases, you can move the data through either Rapid Start, XML ports, some APIs, web services, or whichever custom tooling you're using. So from the vNext, you will be able to go to the tables failed, and there is this action which is called unblock table. So if you invoke it, we will make the table writable. Thus, you can do the manual migration for this specific table if you want. If you do not want to do this, the second replication run is going to fix the problem. The second unblocker that we did is the action to sanitize tables. So on previous conferences and previous events, we have asked you to sanitize the tables before going live. Because if the customer has been using our product for a very long time, before SQL, they probably have invalid characters in code fields. And the reason why is because old versions of our product were allowing you to put new line characters in code fields, lowercase characters, and similar things. However, all of the versions that are on SQL really do not like it. And if you have such records, and if we hit the code like this, which is the upgrade on the customer, this modify call here is going to fail. And essentially it is going to block any upgrade on the tenant. Also, the customers are going to see these records flickering in the UI, and they will not be able to use them in the product. Our strong ask for you is that if you have these customers, is to run this command on their production database. You can do it even before going live. You're going to help them to unblock these problems. You have the what if, which is going to detect the rows, and you can run this command also on the backup of the database, just to list all of the tables that have the problem. And our ask is, as I said, do it before you start the cloud migration process. Now, in case if you didn't do it, which we know that happened for some of the partners, now we have sanitize tables action. And for this one, you need to select the company and you need to select the table that you want to sanitize. And now you can invoke the sanitize table action, and it is going to fix this specific table in this specific company. The reason why we have implemented it like this is because it can really take a long time to sanitize a specific table. The larger the table is, the larger time it is going to take. So that's the reason why it was done per table. We did not want to do it per database and then to make the tenant inaccessible during this time. Also, our strong recommendation is, of course, to run this one outside of the business hours, preferably over the weekend if you are sanitizing a really large table. So that was all about the UI improvements. And for the next feature that we did, I'm going to demo the ability to move the custom fields to the extensions during the cloud migration. And this was the feature that we wanted to do for the 22 release. However, because it is going to help you to do the cloud migrations faster, we decided to port it to 21. So in this case, if we have the on-prem table, which is customer, which was customized, and here we have Microsoft fields. We have some customized fields that we do not need, and we want to leave them in the on-prem database. And we have field 1, 2, and 3 that we want to move to SaaS. As we know, in SaaS, it's not possible to customize the tables. All of the customizations needs to be moved into the table extensions. So for this example, let's say that we want to move the first 2 fields to PT1 and the third field to PT2. If you just do out-of-the-box replication, customer is going to be moved and all of the fields that are not matched are going to be left behind. And we are doing this by using auto-mapping. If the table is marked with replicate data true and the table name and primary key matches, we are going to replicate the table. And now from the version 22, you can use the table mappings and you can map the customer to these 2 PTs, and then we are going to automatically move these fields for you. The only change that you need to do is that you need to rename the fields. So as you know, in SaaS we require you to prefix or suffix the fields. Thus, this is the only change that you need to do in the on-prem database to make the engine run. To show you this one in the action, so when we are on the migration table mapping page, the old way to specify these would be to fill out this line. So I could do it by specifying field by field. However, we have seen that this one is quite error prone. So to fix this one and to prevent you from making mistakes, we have added the new action, which is called add table mappings. So if you invoke this action, we will take you to the new UI. And the only thing that you need to provide is the name for the source table. And to show you how you can do this one in a really nice way is if you go to this SQL itself, and here we go to the customer table, we just run any query like select. And here to show you, we have these PTE fields that we want to move, that are customized. Now if you scroll down and you take the full table name together with square brackets and copy it, if you paste it here like this, we are going to automatically parse everything and we will set the app ID and the data per company for you automatically. Because we are migrating from the CIL table, this app ID is going to be blank. However, if you pasted the AL table, the system would automatically parse it and set it for you. The second thing that you need to do is to set that you want to map to table extension. So I will do that. And now the system is going to find all of the table extensions. So you can see I have some for customers and some for GL entries. I'm going to select 3 records because I could do it one by one, but then I would need to open this page 3 times. However, because I want to split the main table into 3 table extensions, I will select 3 records and then the system is going to automatically insert 3 mapping rules. So I don't need to do this action 3 times. So now if I invoke OK, I will get back to the old page and as you can see 3 customers mapping were introduced. And now we are going to do something similar for the GL rather quickly. So I'll navigate to the GL entry, select all rows, copy the full table name here, and then I'm going to select the GL records and again OK, and it's going to insert 3 GL entries. Also, if you need to do this one multiple times, there is no need to do the steps manually over and over again. We have added the actions to import and export the definitions. So if you invoke export, we are going to give you this definition in the JSON format, so you can easily import and export it across the environments. And in case you are a large ISV partner, you can provide these table mappings automatically through the code. If you subscribe to this event here, from the code unit 4001. In this case, each time when you complete the wizard, all of the table mappings are going to be inserted automatically for you, which is really helpful if you have other people that want to move your on-prem solutions to SaaS. So for the table migration mapping, the last item that I wanted to mention is that we do not support multiple tables as a source. And to explain to you what does this one mean, if we have a case like this, where we would like to move the PTE1 field from the table customer to PTE to this extension here during the cloud migration. However, the same extension exists on-prem. So you want to move the field from one table into another table by providing a table mapping like this. This is unfortunately not supported. The reason why is because then this table is being copied from two source tables, this one here and this one here, and it is not supported. In the production, if you try to do this one, we will copy the data from only a single table, while the data from the second table is not going to be copied. To fix this issue, you can either move the field on-prem before you migrate and then move all the data without the table mappings, or you can introduce a new PTE and map it like this. And it is important, as you can see in this example, all of the destination tables are having a single source, and then the engine is able to replicate the data. All right, so that was all from me. I'm handing it over to Joost.
Thank you, Nicola. The first update I have to share is that as part of 2023 Wave 1, we're introducing a limit of 300 companies per Business Central environment to ensure that every environment is performant within the number of companies that we allow. For cloud migration, this means that our recommendation is to not migrate more than 250 companies per environment to ensure that there's still some quota left after you complete the cloud migration, so you could create companies later on. If you need more than 250 or 300 companies migrated, you can always purchase additional production environments to migrate some companies to a different production environment. Next, I'll share some of the performance improvements we've made in the backend to cloud migration to ensure that your migrations run more reliably and quicker. Starting with major improvement gains for those migrating from an Azure SQL database. In short, this is what the migration flow from Azure SQL used to look like before 2023 Wave 1. In short, data coming from this Azure SQL database was compressed and then moved through the Azure integration runtime to a staging blob. This staging blob was then decompressed, moved through a different Azure integration runtime to eventually move the data to your Business Central Online database. The easiest way to describe the change that we've made is that we've removed the staging blobs. They were causing performance issues. They were making migration slower than they had to be, and they had some issues whenever large attachments were migrated. So by getting rid of these staging blobs, performance for those migrating from Azure SQL database should be noticeably quicker. That's not the only change we've made though. We've also improved the performance for Delta syncs with change tracking. So the change is that on the database you're migrating from, we're enforcing that change tracking is enabled for a minimum of 3 days. This makes sure that whenever we're running multiple replication runs after each other, we're not migrating full tables that have changed, but rather migrate only the changes within those tables. If you're not running replication runs with a frequency to run it every 3 days, you can increase the tracking retention period to any number of days to make sure that instead of taking the full tables that have changed at every replication runs, we'll still rely on the change tracking tables. Next, if you're moving large tables with a lot of data and many indexes, you'll notice that this is going to be faster because as part of the migration, we'll now drop the indexes and rebuild them in the SaaS database so that they don't have to be moved themselves. Finally, we've removed some limitations on table metadata that were limiting the number of tables and tables belonging to your extensions that you could move per replication run. So the number of tables you can move per replication run will be significantly increased as part of this release wave. After these performance improvements that we're making in the next wave, we still have the following recommendations for you to ensure that your migration runs as performantly as possible. First, we would recommend you to update the statistics and reorganize indexes on your source database before starting the cloud migration. Secondly, if you're migrating a particularly large on-premise database, it might be worth it to deploy it to Azure SQL before starting the cloud migration, so you can leverage the performance improvements we've made for migrations from Azure SQL databases. Next, even though we're increasing the number of tables that you can move per replication run, you still might want to be mindful for the number of tables that you're moving. And for the ones that you don't need to move, you can use the replicate data property and set it to false to exclude the table from the cloud migration. Next, we're still recommending you to be mindful of the number of tables that you're moving from your on-premise database to cloud. If a table is no longer needed in your cloud environment, you can set the replicate data property on the application table to false to exclude it from cloud migration. And you can uninstall any extensions that you're not migrating to the cloud. Your migration will be faster because you're not migrating data that is not needed, but also the data consumed by your cloud database in the end will be lower because there's no data in there that you're not needing. Then, for those that are migrating from an on-premise SQL server, so the ones that are not deploying it to Azure SQL before starting the cloud migration, we continue to recommend that the machine that hosts your integration runtime meets the requirements, that it's performant enough to actually move this data. And also, we're recommending that you use a dedicated SQL server with a copy of the source database to run the migration from, rather than your production database. Then, for the ones that are migrating from Azure SQL, we recommend that as you're running these replication runs, you monitor the CPU and memory utilization on your Azure SQL and scale it up in case it's consuming all of the resources that are allocated to the database. In short, the more you scale up your database, the faster your migration will be. Next, I'd like to talk about some of the additions we're making to the application insights when it comes to cloud migration. And we'll introduce an update to the Power BI app with reports specifically on the cloud migrations that are running on your environments. With these additions, we believe we have a complete telemetry story in application insights when it comes to running your cloud migrations. So some of the signals we're adding are when a replication run is started, when it completes, or when cloud migration is disabled. And this you could, for example, use on the popular request to be notified whenever a cloud replication run has been completed. So you could set up a logic app that looks for alerts of this tag and sends you an email that a replication run has been completed whenever this tag appears in your telemetry. These new signals join the signals that we added in the previous release waves around data upgrade to have a complete set of signals around your cloud migrations. Finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about our roadmap and plans in the area of cloud migration. There's a few things we're working on that we're planning to ship over the course of the next release waves that are not ready to demo at the time of this recording just yet. We've received some feedback that you'd like the opportunity to stop an in-progress replication run. We've heard from some partners that start a replication run, and then just as the run has started, they're realizing that they made a mistake and something needs to change. Today, there's no easy way to stop that replication run. You'd have to kill the replication runtime or open a support request. We're working on the ability to stop this in-progress replication run from the Cloud Migration UI. So for the new UI that Nicola demoed earlier, we're looking to expand it with warnings based on your feedback. So in addition to the warnings that Nicola showed earlier, we're planning to add warnings for table mappings that are set up wrong, when per database tables are overwritten, or when data is missing. And of course, we're welcoming your feedback through Yammer or through the IDEA site here if you have any other scenarios that you'd like to be warned about. Next, we're working on the ability to explicitly include or exclude any table from the cloud migration that you can access through AL. This would mean that you can include tables belonging to the base app that are not by default migrated today, or you could exclude tables belonging to extensions that you don't own and no longer need. Finally, we're working on changing the limit in the number of companies moved in a single replication run. With the changes that I described earlier to improve our performance, we believe that the limit of 10 companies that exists today is no longer needed. So we're working to increase it or remove it altogether. That includes our What's New content for cloud migration. We have a few other relevant launch sessions that you might want to catch up on, starting with What's New in environment administration for those that are administrating the environments from the admin center as well. And secondly, for those that are new to telemetry, there's a Get Data Driven with Telemetry session that you can watch to get started with telemetry and see how it works for cloud migration. We are very active on Yammer, so join us on Yammer to discuss any of these new features, give us your feedback, or ask any questions using this aka.ms link. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the Q&A.
Thank you.